What's up, dudes and dudes to the internet? My name's Scythe, and today I thought I would give you a very brief tutorial just because lots of people keep asking me about the various stats in the game, so I kind of wanted to take the opportunity to elaborate on that because I can understand that this game would end up being very confusing for lots of new players coming in as to what most of these stats end up doing. But before we get started with that, would very much appreciate if you would hit that like button. Helps me out more than you know, and thank you so much if you do. Now, without further ado, physical damage and magic damage are going to be your raw damage depending on the character that you're using. And if you're sitting there wondering, I'm playing on the Shadow Hunter, should I be going for magic damage because usually that's the ranged attacks, or should I be going for physical? The way that you can actually tell is your weapon is always going to end up generating the first stat as the damage type that that class is using. So for the Shadow Hunter, he's actually one of the only ranged characters in the game that has physical damage as his main stat, but that's just kind of how the bows end up working. Same with the Boomeranger. Did you know that you can actually use a bow and a sword on the Boomeranger character? Pretty cool, huh? So anyway, physical and magic damage, you're going to want to pretty much get as much of that as you can in the late game. Max health, self-explanatory. Maximum energy, of course, self-explanatory again. That's how your spells end up working. But a quick little tip as far as how the magic bar ends up working is, let's just say that you're casting a spell that takes half of your energy, then you cast another spell that takes half of your energy, and then you let your energy go up just a tiny bit, and then you cast another spell. Now, the game's not going to show it, but your spell, like your magic or energy, is actually going to go into the negative. So you're gonna have to wait a lot longer, or at least it'll seem like you're waiting a lot longer for your energy to recuperate from being at minus 50 and then finally get back to 150% and 100%. So I just wanted to explain that. Health regen, not really one of the best stats. It's really good for starter, like at the beginning of the game, but honestly speaking, once you get to the later portions of the game, you want to avoid getting health regen on your gems like the plague, except if you're going for power rank. And I'll elaborate on that a little bit in a moment because I want to talk about the stats first. So energy regen, obviously your energy is going to regen faster. Now the way that the game ends up working is once you end up casting a spell, your energy is going to stop for a brief moment and then kind of realize, okay, no spells are getting cast, no spells are getting cast, then it's going to start regenning, and that is going to end up just being faster with energy regen. Stability, that is going to be the stat that prevents you from being knocked around by enemies, and although it definitely can be annoying to be knocked around by enemies at the later portions of the game, it's a useless stat, you don't need it. Movement speed, depending on the character that you're using, honestly, I wouldn't focus on movement speed because your mounts and wings are always going to end up being faster until you get to the late game, and then you can build only a set few specific characters into a movement speed build. Links will be in the description. I have other tutorials that talk more about how you're supposed to build each individual character, but for the most part, you don't really worry about movement speed. Attack speed, that depends on the character. While certain characters like the Dracolite, you're not gonna want attack speed, pretty much every other character you're gonna want to go for attack speed. Again, none of this really matters for the early game. Just for the early game, all you're gonna do is focus on power rank, and again, I'll elaborate on that. Jump, quite simply put, is going to be how many times you can jump. So I had somebody end up asking me, dude, how come I can only jump twice? Why can't I jump as high as your character can when I was using the candy bar, right? That's because you can actually get jump as a stat on your gear. So you gotta keep that in mind, and it can be very, very useful to end up getting jump rings and stuff like that. Crit hit, of course, is just going to be your chance to pull off a critical attack. When you're hitting enemies, the white damage numbers are going to be just your normal attack, while the red ones are when you actually get a crit off, which doesn't really matter until the late game anyway. Crit damage is going to be the percentage of the damage you actually do with a critical attack. Superstition is a joke stat that on PC ended up recently doing some very funny things during the last Halloween event, but for the most part, it's a joke stat, so you don't gotta worry about that. There's only a couple allies that end up actually giving it anyways. Magic Find. Now, lots of people have been wanting me to elaborate a little bit more on Magic Find, so I'm going to take that opportunity to do it right now. I did end up talking about this in a stream I did recently, but I think more people will watch this video than the stream, so, then rather than siphoning through like an hour of footage. So the way that Magic Find ends up working in Trove is Magic Find isn't going to increase the amount of good items that you're going to get, because Magic Find in itself is going to trigger randomly, and that is not governed by the stat. if you have like max magic find, you're not getting magic find triggered like 24/7 or anything like that. While it may end up triggering more often than the average player for sure, it's not like gonna trigger 24/7. What magic find is going to do is, as an item ends up generating with the magic find buff on it, it means that that item's chance of being a higher quality item is going to be improved based on your magic find. Think of it as a percentage, right? So if you have magic find, let's say, just for example, I don't know the actual numbers, but let's just say you have a 20% chance of when magic find triggers an item to actually be radiant or stellar. So hopefully that puts it into perspective for you. But if you're wondering, the numbers may have changed on this. It's been a long time, and the magic find keeps getting readjusted as the devs add more dragons, which give you more magic find. They keep having to nerf the drop rates and stuff like that. But as the way it used to be, you had to have a minimum of 300 magic find to get a radiant drop. Very rare, but you can still get it. And yes, you can get them from U1 and all the way up. And then you would have to have, I think, 500 or 700 magic find in order to get a stellar drop. And again, that's going to be very, very difficult to actually attain. And even magic find in general is going to take a long time for most players, because you get magic find from all of the dragons. And then once you end up having all the dragons, then you can get yourself patron, which is going to double that, right? Lasermancy, self-explanatory, well, not self-explanatory, honestly. I remember even when I first started this game, it took me a long time to realize that that stat actually means how fast you're going to dig with your laser, right? So it should actually say digging speed and be on a percentage as well. Flask capacity is going to be how many potions you can end up having, but depending on the flask that you're using, it might adjust how many flasks you end up having. So Death Defying, for example, you're going to have less flasks than using the default one. But of course, that number is going to rise based on your character's flask capacity. You know what I'm saying? And a couple of these stats are actually shared across all of your characters. And then experience boost, that doesn't really end up coming into play unless you end up having patron, I think. Honestly, I don't really know. Maybe it's just talking about the experience boost day. But then battle factor, that's going to actually be in regard to PvP. I'll elaborate more on that in a video that actually talks about the battle arena and the player versus player aspect. But needless to say, the more battle factor you have, the more battle boxes you're going to be able to get. And the way that it ends up working is when you're in PvP, you have to be grinding PvP, right, for, I think it's like 40 minutes to an hour or something like that, and then the game is going to randomly throw you a battle box, and you can only get so many of them within, I think it's a day or a week. I honestly forget. I don't really main PvP or anything, but the battle factor is going to determine how many you can get within that allotted time. And then for chaos factor, that is going to be daily chaos chests that you're just going to get for logging into the game that are just going to show up on your account. You end up gaining a couple of chaos factor through mastery, which is going to take us a long time to actually get to that in the series, but needless to say, I just wanted to elaborate on those features. Now, as far as the power rank is concerned, because people keep asking me what should I actually be building towards and what should I be doing, and they're talking about all their stats and stuff like that, don't focus on stats at the early game, folks. Really, there's no point. The whole point of the game is you're trying to get to the end as fast as possible. So you're going to try and rush as much power rank as possible so that you can get to those higher portals and stuff like that. Especially because it's going to take us all a little bit of a while before we can start getting lunar souls from killing Daughter of the Moon and getting empowered gem boxes to give us empowered gems. So again, I'm just saying that you can go ahead and have stats that you don't need. Like on a Draco, you don't need attack speed like I mentioned. Go ahead and go for attack speed if it means that that weapon or gear is going to give you a considerable amount of power rank, because honestly speaking, you're going to end up leveling up your character faster than you're gaining power rank. And especially when you get to the later portions of the game and you actually start focusing on the gem system, because the gems are where the entirety of this game is at. Like I've said in other tutorials, gear eventually becomes very irrelevant. Now, of course, you're gonna end up getting, you know, gear, of course, still means something for sure, but you know, just for example, it's like on the PC version of Trove, my gems are so powerful, I can swap to noob gear and I can still handle U9 no problem, because the gems are where it's at, right? But That said, if you're finding that you're you know, not strong enough to enter U8, which is where you're gonna end up getting your class gem ability with 5,000 power rank, get some gems that don't give you the stats that you need just because they give you power rank. Get a gem that gives you magic damage when you're using a candy barb and need physical damage, because it doesn't matter. Just get to that point where you can get to your class gem, get in there, grab the item, then swap off your garbage gems for ones that you can actually use for combat and grind your character up, because the whole big goal of the game right now anyways, not only maxing your level out at 30, but getting your class gem ability is going to end up being the biggest part of the game, at least for most of the characters. But you know, I have plenty of tutorials in the description for all of that stuff, and this video has gone on long enough. I just wanted to kind of instruct you on the stats, power rank, and what you're gonna actually be focusing on as a new player, because yeah, like, we're gonna be leveling up so much faster than we're gaining power rank, so you gotta focus on as much power rank as you can get so that you can go into the next Uber portals and stuff like that and actually be strong enough, have enough power rank to go in there and actually like get some experience and level up faster, right? But anyways, thanks so much for watching, everybody. Hope you found this video helpful. Do not forget to like, share, favorite, and subscribe for more daily content. Sano, and stay epic, everybody.